All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to do our final predictions and previews ahead of this weekend's action. We're going to look at all the fights on UFC Freedom's 250 card. We're also going to look at Bam Rodriguez versus Antonio Vargas, which I think is a massive fight. Big rewards, but a high-risk fight, in my opinion, for Bam Rodriguez. I think lots of people will be overlooking Antonio Vargas. It's probably because Antonio Vargas isn't a massive name, and lots of people probably haven't heard of Antonio Vargas. But I do think there is some risk involved. I'm going to talk about that fight, but I want to start with the UFC Freedom 250 card. Make sure you guys jump in the comments, let me know your predictions for these fights as well. We'll start at the bottom, which surprisingly is Diego Lopez, considering it wasn't that long ago we saw him in a title fight. But I've got Diego Lopez to get a late stoppage or a submission on Mean Machine, Steve Garcia. I think Steve Garcia is such a problem for the very first round that Diego Lopez might say, all right, we're just going to do this on the ground. Let's see how you can go with a couple of rounds with me on top of you. Diego Lopez, we know how much he likes to be in the stand-up. We saw it in those Volk fights, but, he was clearly outboxed and outdone on the stand-up against Volkanovski. Diego Lopez might say, yeah, I don't really want this heat on the feet for that first sort of round. Maybe in the later rounds, I'll say, all right, let's get on our feet. But for the very first round, I wouldn't be surprised if Diego Lopez tests out what Mean Machine can do on the ground. But either way, I've gone with a submission or a late stoppage for Diego Lopez. I just think he'll show his class and his experience at the top level, and it'll be too much for Steve Garcia. I've got Bo Nickel to get a decision against Kyle Dukas. This is a massive surprise, and this is probably the one that people are going to rip into me in the comments. So go ahead. But I've gone with Michael Chandler to get a decision against Mauricio Rufy. It wasn't that long ago we saw Mauricio Rufy get stopped by Benoit Saint-Denis. I think Michael Chandler, we know how bad the results have been recently. And in fact, if you were to sum up his UFC career, it's probably been more lows than highs. I think there's an argument for that. But Michael Chandler, considering the recent sort of form, his age now, and to still see Michael Chandler in the physique, in the shape that he prepares every single fight for, I think the mental toughness, as well as just the ability to keep on going, keep pushing through, and getting yourself to, he's probably one of the hardest workers in the whole UFC. And you pair this up with the occasion, the fact that he's fighting at the White House, it'll mean a lot to Michael Chandler. And I think something that people are sleeping on is, I think there's going to be a fire ignited in Michael Chandler. The fact that we've seen Conor McGregor announce that he's going to be taking on Max Holloway, a fight that, Michael Chandler was supposed to be taking on Conor McGregor over the past few years. There's been back and forth. There's been fight cancellations. The amount of times Chandler's called him out and he's been, pushed to the side. I wouldn't be surprised if that announcement that Conor McGregor is now going to take a fight against Max Holloway in just over a month ignites a bit of a fire in Michael Chandler and says, I'm still here, guys. Don't you dare fucking forget about me. So I've gone Michael Chandler to get a decision against Mauricio Rufy. That very well could end in a stoppage, but I'm going to bank on a decision for Michael Chandler. Josh Hockett to KO Derek Lewis. I think that'll be an exciting fight. Probably will be up there with Fight of the Night. It'll be a firefight. And Josh Hockett, he's done a lot of talking, all right, in the lead up to this fight, especially to Alex Pereira. You've now got to back it up. You can't go in there and get slumped by Derek Lewis. If you get slept by Derek Lewis after talking the amount of shit you are, you're going to be a fucking meme and a half. Sugar Sean, I've got to win a decision against Iron Zahabi. It's been a long time since we've seen Sugar Sean really, get a clinical KO finish. It's probably Aljamain Sterling. If I'm remembering correctly, that's probably the last, wow, look at Sugar Sean moment that we've had. So I'm not sure it'll come against an experienced fighter like Ayman Sahabi. Ayman Sahabi hasn't probably been stopped since it's got to be like 5 or 6 years for Ayman Sahabi. But I've got Sugar Sean to win a decision. I'd love to see him get a KO. I'd love to see him really put on a performance and make a statement again. It has been a very long time since we've seen it from Sugar. All right, let's talk about Alex Pereira and Cyril Gane. This fight here, I think, solely hinges on Alex Pereira's performance in this division. We've seen Cyril Gane. He's brought in some former opponents of Alex Pereira's from kickboxing. So obviously he's got a game plan. It was Vargas, the last guy that beat Alex Pereira. That's who Cyril Gane has in his camp, looking at sparring footage, training with, getting ready to face Alex Pereira. So obviously Cyril Gane, we know how good he is at stand-up, is planning to have just a kickboxing match with Alex Pereira. And Alex Pereira, we know how good he is at striking. We do, all right? It all hinges on how he performs at the heavyweight division. All right, middleweight to heavyweight, it's a big jump. And there has been some different talks in the lead up to this fight about Alex Pereira's performance in and out of camp. Is he as quick? Is he bloated? Is he able to perform the same way as he was able to at light heavy? These are all questions that have been going around. So Alex Pereira's performance here, I think, solely hinges on the fact that can he adjust to heavyweight? Because I think if he can adjust to heavyweight, for me, there's no question he beats Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane's a very good fighter, all right? But we all saw what John Jones did to him. We all saw what Francis Ngannou did. Don't forget, in between those two fights, he almost gets knocked out from Bam Bam to Avasa. So I've got Alex Pereira winning this fight, but don't sleep on Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane would have taken a lot of confidence from that fight against Tom Aspinall. Like, most people didn't give Ciryl Gane the chance to win that fight against Tom Aspinall. For me, that one round that they fought, Ciryl Gane outstriked Tom Aspinall. And I thought it was quite clinical, that first round. I thought Ciryl Gane looked very, very good in that first round against Tom Aspinall. So this fight's not going to be easy by any means. All right, and Alex Pereira, he has been tested in previous fights. We also saw what Israel Adesanya did to him. I know that was a few divisions ago, and it was probably a lot to do with the weight thing. But for Alex Pereira, when facing Ciryl Gane this weekend, he's going to have to be strong. He's going to have to, be able to use the kickboxing ability against Ciryl Gane, but don't fight it the way he probably might have when he was at a middleweight, because there's going to be a lot more coming back in this fight than he would have faced at middleweight. The other problem that we got to talk about in this fight is the eye pokes, the low blows, the back of the head, all the things that Ciryl Gane does in this fight. This fight could become very, very messy very, very quickly. Alex Pereira needs to make sure that we know how mentally sound he is. All right, he is a very mentally sound person, but when you're getting some eye pokes, when you're getting some low blows, things can unravel quickly, and he needs to just make sure his emotions don't get ahead of himself. But saying that, we saw the last time he took a low blow against Jamal Hill, and he just said, Sharma, and knocked the fucker out. So I've still got Alex Pereira winning. I think he will stop Ciryl Gane, and I actually think he'll do it quite well. I think round 2, round 3, he stops Ciryl Gane. But it is a dangerous fight, and we could be sleeping on Ciryl Gane again, because Alex Pereira, we just don't know what he's going to do at the heavyweight division, a new division, against a big guy in Ciryl Gane. Ilia Topuria versus Justin Gaethje. This is a funny one. I thought Justin Gaethje was going to lose to Paddy Pimblett. I was surprised, all right, pleasantly surprised how well Justin Gaethje fought against Paddy. Like, he handled Paddy Pimblett with ease. Manhandled the guy. And coming into this fight, you give Justin Gaethje a chance, but for me, it's a very, very, very slim chance. I'm talking very, very slim. I think Justin Gaethje, he does bring something to this fight that not a lot of fighters would bring to Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria is so technically sound in all facets of the fight game. All right, he's so good at boxing, but realistically, he's a Greco-style wrestler first. So when you look at Justin Gaethje, it's, all right, what can you bring to this fight that others haven't? What can you do to disrupt Ilia Topuria? Well, Ilia Topuria, like a good technical boxer, likes an opponent that's readable, a guy that is, he knows what's coming. Ilia Topuria is watching Justin Gaethje. All right, Justin Gaethje is going to throw 2 jabs and a hook, and then he's going to follow that with an uppercut and a left. These type of combinations, he's like, all right, I know what Justin Gaethje is going to do. I know when he's going to do it. I know how he's going to bob and weave. Well, Justin Gaethje isn't that fighter. As much as all the other fighters that Ilia Topuria has faced are readable, Justin Gaethje is so unorthodox that, how do you prepare for someone that's going to be doing rolling thunders, backflips, all sorts of shit at random time? Like, when your opponent doesn't know what he's doing at a certain time, how are you supposed to know? And that's what Ilia Topuria is going to struggle with in this fight. I've heard Ilia Topuria talk about how he prepares for fights.
For example, once we get the confirmation that we were fighting with Justin, the first thing I used to do with my team is that we sit down in front of the screen and we go in like Justin's team. We have to advise Justin how he has to fight against Ilia, and we start watching my fights. And we do the strategy of Justin. And in base of Justin's strategy, we make our strategy. You want to kill, take away like all his chances. It's like, first of all, we have to know how Justin and his team are going to think, how they are going to prepare themselves against me, Once we go to that realization, we build our strategy. we built our game plan.
This is a guy that tries to work out what you're going to do, and then he makes his game plan off the back of that. This guy's trying to think in 3D when everybody else is thinking in 2D. The problem with that is Justin Gaethje is thinking in 1D. All right, Justin Gaethje is in a whole nother fucking universe. He's going to do random weird shit at all sorts of times. How do you prepare for that? And that's what I think Justin Gaethje's advantage in this fight is against Ilia Topuria. It is that unorthodox nature. It is that dynamism. It is that, all right, all of a sudden you're thinking I'm going to throw a jab and a hook. I'm going to throw a jab and a fucking leg kick. Just different shit that Ilia Topuria is going to have to contend with. But I think that works in two ways. And this is what breaks this fight for me. Justin Gaethje is a brawler against a technical boxer. Justin Gaethje will go in there and let his hands fly. And Ilia Topuria is smart enough and he knows how to box well enough that he will be able to step back and counter him or punch between bunches. And that's what I think he's going to do. I think Ilia Topuria will wait his time. Justin Gaethje is going to try and make this a messy fight. If it stays on the feet, all right, we're going to talk about if it goes to the ground. But if it stays on the feet, it'll be a messy fight. Justin Gaethje will let his hands fly with no regard for defense, and he'll get clocked by Ilia Topuria. And I'm thinking about that Max Holloway time. I don't think it'll be as quick as the Charles Oliveira one, but nonetheless, same result. Late round 2, early round 3, possibly pushing the 4th. But Ilia Topuria will clock this guy, and I think we'll see another knockout in a row for Ilia Topuria. If it goes to the ground, I still favor Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria is a wrestler in the first place. Justin Gaethje, we've seen him be submitted before. Charles Oliveira, Khabib. So I'm going Ilia Topuria by knockout in probably the late of the second round. That would be my official prediction. Ilia Topuria, late second round. All right, let's talk about Bam Rodriguez and Antonio Vargas. I think this is an amazing fight. I think there is a lot of risk, like I said. And the risk for me in this fight is the fact that there's a lot of noise around Bam Rodriguez of what he's doing next. The same sort of noise we heard when we were looking at Junto Nakatani versus Naoya Inoue. Junto Nakatani, coming into that Naoya Inoue, had possibly his worst performance of his career against Sebastian Hernandez. That's a risk coming into this fight. All right, having your eye on somebody else is always a danger. And there's arguments that Sebastian Hernandez did win that fight against Junto Nakatani. Get a draw against Junto Nakatani. Do enough to not lose that fight. Bam Rodriguez, I don't think that'll happen in this fight, but it's always a risk. And we know Antonio Vargas, he's quick. All right, he's a good amateur, good professional. He's a world champion. He's a very good boxer. And he likes to fight. So it's going to be a tough night for Bam Rodriguez if he underestimates his opponent. I want to talk in a minute about what is next for Bam Rodriguez if he wins this fight. But in terms of just that night, you have to be so clinical. You have to be so measured and say, this is the guy I'm beating tonight. All right. I'm not worried about Inoue's. I'm not worried about anybody else. Tonight, I'm just worried about Antonio Vargas. Because Antonio Vargas, he is a fighter. He's a warrior. He'll get on the inside. He'll go to war with you. He'll throw. He's a power puncher. There's been fights where he gets knocked down, he gets back up, and he still goes on to win those fights. All right. He had Fight of the Year nominations. He had a great fight last time out against Dago Higa, which ended in a draw, but it was still a very, very entertaining fight. This guy will come and go to war with you. But as much as we say all of that, it still works in favor of Bam Rodriguez. A bit like we said about Ilia Topuria, Bam Rodriguez is such a technical boxer that he can pick somebody off like that. In fact, Bam Rodriguez is a guy that probably prefers that style because Bam Rodriguez doesn't have to go searching. Doesn't have to make angles, all right, to find these punches. Opportunities are going to present themselves against Antonio Vargas. And Bam's just got to capitalize. We saw how well he countered Puma last year. Like, just slip, left hand, knockout. Bang, done. And that's how good Bam Rodriguez is. And I think Bam Rodriguez is a top pound-for-pound fighter. The biggest risk in this fight is underestimating his opponent. As long as he doesn't do that, Bam Rodriguez is far too technical, far too good. The footwork, the angle creation. And this guy's got power. He's now going to be a little bit heavier. I would assume that power is going to carry with it as well. And Antonio Vargas is going to present lots of opportunities. And I think Bam Rodriguez will be able to get on one of these. I've tipped him for a round 7 stoppage. I think in and around that. It could happen earlier, but I'm going with a round 7 stoppage for Bam Rodriguez. And the biggest talking point about this fight, when it does happen, when it is finished, is what's going to be next for Bam Rodriguez. Because in the lead up to this fight, like over the past week, every single day we've heard a different storyline. A few days ago, it was Bam Rodriguez is going to take Takuma Inoue and then Naoya Inoue. Today, the news out of Robert Garcia is that
Bam could fight September, October. You know, Man, why not even at that, Mexico versus the world? Chispa Medina is born in Guadalajara, so that would be beautiful for Bam versus Chispa on that September card. I wouldn't mind doing that.
Bam Rodriguez is going to be taking on Christian Medina before he takes on Naoya Inoue. So I think Bam Rodriguez, all these noise, all these disruptions, just focus on the fight coming this Sunday against Antonio Vargas. It's going to be an exciting fight. I think this fight will be a very exciting fight because I don't think Antonio Vargas will shell up. I don't think he'll try and have a real sort of boxing match with Bam Rodriguez. I think he will go in there. I think he will let his hands fly. I think he will try and make this fight a little bit of a mess. And Bam Rodriguez needs to stay composed enough, use his boxing acumen, and pick this guy off. And I think he will do that and probably land a good counterpunch. If not, hurt him and then apply the pressure. All right, guys, let me know what your predictions are in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'm out of here. See yous.